Hey everybody, NovelistCrim here, and welcome to Writing Company and Motivation. This is a stream that's kind of like dedicated to our betterment here. So it's an accountability stream where we get together and we do some writing, and we push forward toward our goal of whatever that is. Could be creative endeavors such as writing a novel, like I'm doing. Could be art, or anything really. As long as you show up and hang out, do your stuff, and some of this stuff that we talk about might help towards motivation, might inspire you. Who knows? Let's see here. Quench your hunger with creativity, honestly. All right, so for those of you who are new here, we usually host the streams roughly around 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Usually we start off the stream by doing a journal entry, kind of just like whatever's on my head at the time. I kind of share it and post it on the Discord, which you can certainly get on our Discord channel by hitting !Discord. After which we kind of discuss the journal entry / writing challenges. Usually I like to write about something involving writing. Could be advice at the time, or maybe a challenge I'm facing or whatever, but it's usually good stuff, and hopefully it you guys find some of the subject material interesting. Aside from that, we do open the floor to some questions, and some of the questions you can ask ahead of time on our Discord channel as well, or you can ask during the chat if it kind of like pops up in your head. So anywho, let's see here. Yeah, I think it's time to start up a journal. Okay, so now we're on the discussion portion of this stream here. So let's take a look to refresh my memory. All right, so today has been like a day that's kind of filled with like a lot of self-reflection. I think it's been interesting because like I really want to improve quite a bit of things in my life. Putting my own home in order, like where it's nice and neat and things are kind of like everything's in its place where it should be. Kind of like establishing order to the chaos would be nice. Perhaps losing weight, that would be awesome. Getting healthier habits and having more energy towards life. Developing better habits with writing. Getting faster with production of writing chapters. I've been really kind of frustrated, as you know, with the time it takes to turn over a chapter. It could be anywhere between 2, 3, even 4 weeks. And in the case of chapter 10, it's been about 4 weeks-ish. And it's been truly a hassle because, what do you call it? Like, I really want to get these things going, but like, I feel like part of what's holding me back is like the expectation, but I'll get into that in the writing portion in just a sec. So I was talking to a friend today about like, the difficulty that comes with trying to change into the person that you want to be. And I think that part of the reason why it's so difficult to like enact change in your life is because your brain is designed to maintain homeostasis. It wants to keep things safe. It wants to keep things predictable. It wants to know where it's getting its food, what's happening, and take less risks so it can use less energy to keep you alive with less effort. Because of that innate desire to like keep itself safe, I think that also extends towards the psychological as well. Because like a lot of times when your position is challenged, or when you feel embarrassed, or when you're wrong, or something like that, we feel like this embarrassment, this shame, and in a way it's kind of like pain, and we tend to avoid that. In a way to protect itself. It would either deny or run away from the problem, or try to push just try to push back. I think that kind of extends towards like the habit changing as well. If you want to like change a habit, it kind of feels like your mind is designed to stop you a little bit, at least initially, in the sense that like it kind of feels like your suggestion that things need to change is almost like a threatening of death to the older version of yourself, and your older version wants to live. but it must die in order for the newer version to kind of like, stay alive and keep going. So like, with that threat there, I can see why people, find it really difficult to change, why procrastination is like so prevalent, why, it's hard, it's easier to not do anything. It's really difficult to like, enact a change in your life. It's rough, but I get it. This is something like, we kind of observed. Let me check the Discord here. It seems like we got a new question. Let's see here. I'll be able to answer some of those toward the end. So, but I thank you guys. If you have any more questions, keep posting them. Let's move on to like our writing portion, though. Let's see here. So I think a lot of the writing struggles that I've been having, especially with chapter 10, kind of feels like an idea of expectation, sometimes like whenever we go into something, we kind of like set a high bar for ourselves of like what we want to succeed. I noticed that a lot of times when I try to do something, sometimes you get pleasantly surprised by like what you're capable of. Sometimes you get satisfied with what you've created. But I find that 9 times out of 10, any type of idea that you have in your mind and you try to create it, in my experience, it's never going to be exactly as it came out in your mind, I think part of the fascination of the creation process is to discover what idea that you had truly is. So like, sometimes you have an idea, it didn't really work out on paper, but you kind of like finagle it in order to get it to work. And sometimes it works out even better than you intended, which is pretty cool. Sometimes you surprise yourselves by like, when you're going through the story and you're coming up with reasons in order to keep something or make it like work, you find ways around, and it gets pretty good. I think with me, I had this expectation that this scene in this novel should be like, very desperate, should be crazy. It's one of the few chapters that has been, finally introducing like magic, where, people are fighting against each other using, full force of like, magic and sorcery. And I kind of wanted like, I pictured this big scale battle with like, tons of things happening, chaos and pandemonium, like, lasers and lightning flying back and forth. But when I do my own writing style and I get into the world, things kind of like get pulled down a little bit toward reality, and I can't help but like sit there and be like, well, that idea is cool, but it's not realistic, it's not believable. So like, at least not for the story that I'm trying to write. So you have to go through with it, and like sometimes you keep having that like, but this idea. And trying to think around it is a real struggle sometimes. I think trying to stab at it at different angles is probably the best way to go. I mean, throughout the weeks, even on stream, whenever we're doing like the writing portion of the stream, I've spent 3 or 4 rough drafts of this particular chapter writing on stream, from top to bottom, just like writing it out and trying it and failing and writing it out, trying and failing. And it's like, I always found something different or something that needs to be changed. But this final iteration that I'm writing, or at least the most recent iteration, is coming out pretty good. Like, I feel like, all right, so this is, it's not the crazy big battle that I wanted it to be, but it's got the right amount of desperation. It's got the right amount of like, victory and loss and, setbacks. It's got the right amount of like, energy that will push the story forward and maintain good storytelling that'll, keep everything pointing toward the climax. So I'm not too worried about that. I think it's coming out pretty good. But I think just kind of being aware of like what expectations you're setting for yourself, and understanding that like, if you don't create something that is exactly in the image that you've, made in your head, don't get married to the ideas that are in your head. I'd say have an idea of where you want to go, try it out, and if it doesn't work, let's say a couple times, and you're struggling and you feel like you can't continue the story unless you fix this one thing, it might be because that thing doesn't simply belong in the story. You might want to try a different mean or method of working around it. I always ask myself, how can I write this scene without using that particular idea? Is there another way? Is there another angle? Is there anything that I can do in the past that can make this scene possible, Definitely looking backward and remembering that you can kind of dance between the time continuum, essentially. So, let's see here. Let's answer some questions. All right. So one question I have is, what has been the most important lesson you've learned from the first manuscript of the story to the current one? I'd say letting go. Letting go is probably the most important lesson that I've ever learned from the first draft. Let's see here. I think that when writing a rough draft, I kind of mentioned this story before in the previous stream that we did, but I'll kind of rehash it a little bit. So essentially, in the story, I basically realized that I've tortured myself in writing about 10 crafted chapters, and then afterwards I got inspiration to just blast through the rest of the rough draft. So it took me 6-9 months, maybe 4, 6, 9. I can't remember. It took a long time to get to that 10 chapters, a ridiculous amount of time. And then it took me to I got the next 50 to 70,000 words done in about 1.5 months, just by blowing through the content. And then I realized that, so I wasted a bunch of time trying to craft all of that, all of those first 10 chapters basically are thrown out, completely overhaul, rewritten. There's not even the same scenes at all. Nothing is the same. The story has been so streamlined and strengthened that it is a completely different animal, right? Than compared to the rough draft. And the only reason why that happened in the first place was because when I got to the final scene and the final pages of the the rough draft, I in the battle between the main character versus the the antagonist, I finally realized, this is what the story is about. This is the story that I'm trying to tell, and none of what I've written previously in the rough draft has built up to this epic moment, right? Nothing is pointing toward that. Nothing is increasing the impact of this wonderful, awesome scene. But I now know where I want to go, and I wouldn't have found that unless I, just said, let go, stop trying to make it perfect, and just blitz all the way to the end. So when I finally, did that, I think that was one of the best things that I could ever done. Letting go. Let go of the inner editor when you're doing a rough draft. Blaze through the work. Just get it done. And you'll find that the answer to what your true story is about. You may think you know what the story is right now, but if you get to the end, I promise you, there's going to be some serious changes. I think one of the things that you could possibly do, and this is some of the stuff that I did when I was doing writing, especially since I knew that there was a lot of things that I wanted to change. When I went through the content of the story, I would write down I would have pound symbols of things that I would like to change, or things that I would pretend that would happen, in order to make the next scene work. So I'm okay, well, this didn't work, so do this and pretend that this happened, and then just continue onward. My favorite thing, though, for people who really want to keep track of things and not forget anything is, and I got this from work when I was working at an engineering company, you start what's called an action log, right? So having a list of having a big list of action logs, and what it is essentially is that you'd write down the chapter, of what chapter you're working on, right? And as you're going through and you realize that you need to make a change later, you write down what kind of change or thing that you want to fix in the second draft, and then just move on. Don't fix it in the actual rough draft, but this is like a list of things that need to be changed later. So when you're done with the second draft, when you're done with the first draft and you're taking like that, like, 2 to 4 week break from your work, you can look over the action log, understand what things needed to change, then kind of like reconsider like anything else that needs to change now that you have information about the climax. And then you can also like redo your what do you call it, kind of like I would say like beat sheet, or basically like your chapter information. Like I like to write down information about like, okay, so what scene's gonna happen here generally speaking, and I kind of do that in like different phases. Like sometimes I write I write what the story is going to be generally about in like one or two sentences. Or sorry, about 2 sentences roughly. Then I go down and I try to like make sure that that I can look at each chapter, right? Like the beats in the story, and then I just write a 1-sentence description about what that chapter is about. Just boom, generally. And then like, just kind of have like a nice little chronological list of like what's going on, so I generally know what's happening. And then afterwards, I like do each individual chapters with like a little bit of detail, like a synopsis of like what's actually happening. It's like when I'm thinking about it. This is like the creation process for me. Sometimes I adhere to it like very closely. Sometimes I don't. It kind of like bounces around, but this is like some techniques and tricks that I've learned going through with the writing process. Let's see here. Hopefully that did I answer the question? I kind of meandered. Let's see here. But yeah, I guess that's the most important lesson that I've learned. You definitely, when you're doing your rough draft, for sure, your first manuscript, get the work done and go all the way to the end, because you're going to learn so many tricks about writing yourself and what the story's about all in one shot. It is like power leveling for your work. So if you just like kind of go through that, you'll come back with a lot of valuable stuff. And also you get into the habit of going through the writing flow and kind of like getting stuff accomplished, which is huge. All right, so another question here. Over the course of writing, has there ever been something you previously learned and held as a great tip, but later abandoned due to it not working for you? If so, then what do you think is a good way to determine what does and doesn't work for you? I'd say that, yeah, there's like a lot of things that I've like gone through and I've had like, I've been headstrong about, and like, I thought that this is the way you write type of thing. But then I realized that like I had to let go of those things because they weren't working, right? I'm trying to think of like an example here. Like one of the things, okay, here's one. And this could actually go into like magic systems, for example. Since this is something that Justin asks, I might be able to do a 2-for-1. So one of the things that I've done like process-wise is like I was trying to do things that I was wasting like a lot of time instead of like focusing on the story. For me, storytelling is the most important part, as well as character. The most important characters that you should be working on first and foremost is the main character and the antagonist. Those two must be like worked on. Super important. One of the things that I thought that I needed to do for the characters was to go through like a really super detailed descriptions and whatnot. Like I would write their backstory, I would write their like so much information about like what are their powers, what can they do, what kind of clothing do they wear, what kind of lifestyle do they have, and I just like filled it out, fleshed it out as much as I could. And I did the same thing with the magic system as well. Like I took months to design a magic system that was extremely rigid, and all of it made sense. It was basically balanced like a video game. It had all of it made there were rules and the rules couldn't be broken. But I figured as I went through the story and I started the narrative, all of those things flew out the window and I never used them. It was basically a grand waste of time, at least on my end. At least I knew more about the characters, but you don't really know your characters unless you live in their skin and, you know, follow them through the world. So like, I would say like maybe after the first draft, if you want, you can take some time to like, you know, flesh out the characters and, you know, work on them from a standpoint where you actually had time to understand them a little bit better, you know? In terms of like, you know, magic systems and whatnot, I did spend like a lot of time doing magic systems. I would try to create like, I would try to think of like, okay, well, what kind of like, you know, magic system do I want? Like, do I want it to be technology based? Do I want it to be sorcery based? Do I want it to be patron based, where, you know, some person from an otherworldly realm gives you the powers? You know, what thing makes their magic? And also, how does that affect the world? How does that affect the economy? How does it affect politics? How does it affect like how they farm, how they live? Do they, you know, like, think of it this way. I heard this joke on YouTube a while back where they were talking about like Harry Potter, and it's like, you know, in a world where wizards could literally apparate and teleport any place that they want in the world, yet they take one of the slowest animals to deliver mail. Why? You know, like, when you think about that, why though? So like, you know, it's almost like animal cruelty, as the joke went on. But like, like having those thoughts in mind and trying to like, you know, craft a believable world. That's what I want from the magic system. I don't want it to be like, I don't want it to be game breaking. I want it to make sense. I don't want it to like be so loosey-goosey that the magic would be coming off as a Deus Ex Machina. I definitely like the idea of there being rules to the magic and what they're, you know, and limitations of what they're capable of, right? I kind of really like the concept of almost like the X-Men, right? Where everybody has like their own special abilities and things that they're capable of doing. Maybe they can grow or not, I don't know. But like, I like, you know, everybody has their thing, you know, and they're really good at that thing. And maybe they can use that thing in creative ways that like, you know, makes their story a little interesting. But like, I think figuring out what kind of story you're trying to tell, what are the challenges that the heroes need to face, and does your magic system work to increase the interest of your story, or does it cheapen the narrative in the sense that like, you know, oh, well, if you can, so long as you have a wand and you say garbledy-goop, you know, all your problems go away. I feel like that's one of the most dangerous things about like, you know, dealing with magic, is that like, you know, when you open the door so wide that like anything can like go through, people start to question, well, why didn't they do this? And why didn't they do that? So being cautious about like what is and isn't possible is like a huge thing. Every time you introduce something into the world, as I mentioned before, has lots of ramifications and implications. So, you know, figure that out. Let's see here. Do you build character before plot? How much detail? I kind of build the character in my head. Like I generally have like an idea of like what I want to do. Like I think of like I think of a cool character that I want to design, and then I think of a problem that they have, right? And then like, you know, I think of like how all the cool ways they can solve that problem, you know, be it like magic or something like that. And I'm like, okay, cool. But how did they get that magic? And how are they in the position that they're in? And then just like you keep asking those questions and start thinking of like, okay, well, now I'm starting to build a world and a story around this. And then you want to start the story at the most interesting moment right before big changes start to happen. Like, you know, this is the time where things start to kick off, type of thing, you know? Let's see here. I feel like magic systems can have rules as long as those rules have wiggle room. Yes, yep. We don't know everything about science, and magic should be treated the same way. Keep some mysteries. Yep, totally agree. Let's see. Discover alongside the character. Just start with that. Magic system that can't be countered. Anyone could shoot anyone, but they never did. Yeah, that's just ridiculous. Yeah, so like having some boundaries and some rules like set in place would be like, and I think it just like whenever you introduce any like new item into the story, really consider like, you know, how does this affect all aspects in life? How could, like, you know, if a person wanted to break, you know, wanted to undermine your story and then just like play aggressively as they could with this power and then try to ruin the story and then win the game as fast and easy as possible, how would they do it? And that, you know, that's the limitations that you would require of, you know, for your story. It's like, oh, well, you can't do this because of this. And, you know, you come up with reasons for it or whatever. So yeah, hopefully those things kind of help out. Let's see here. So process for creating magic systems. I guess I kind of like covered that. Interesting. Yeah. Any other questions? Sorry, we've been talking for a while. Could a character min-max? If the answer is yes, go back to the drawing board. Kinda. I mean, it depends on like what kind of story you want too. Like sometimes people like the, what do you call it? The power fantasies, and they just kind of hammer in with their epic ass character doing epic stuff. It yeah, you know. Then again, there's like One Punch Man, you know. But then that's not really a problem. And the reason I'll tell you why is because, you know, the promise of the story is that you're gonna follow a guy who is undefeatable, right? And you're going to be, so, you know, that character is surrounded by interesting people living interesting lives, and he's just basically going to be the Deus Ex Machina to wrap things up. But it's like, it's the other people's struggles that are the interesting part. That's where the story is. So it's kind of like, you know, fun, because like you get to wrap up the story in a fun way, because you always know what the solution's gonna be, which is like One Punch Man just like kind of gives a one solid punch, wrecks that problem. You also get a little bit of a satisfaction after, you know, like knowing that these monsters are talking all this hot shit and they just get nuked. It's pretty great. Let's see. Progress fantasy, it's an emerging genre. Yep, it's an unpublished world. Essentially, it's about the everyman because ultra powerful. Of course, yeah. Yep. I think that's like one of the hard things too. It's like trying to manage what like success and progress means for your story is kind of like tricky. Man, that's a really tricky thing. Because I guess, like, you know, you can, you know, how do you measure success in a story, right? Like, do you measure success on, like, you know, how the character is emotionally progressing, or you know, do they have more things to kick butt with? Well, I think that, like, you know, greatly depends on, like, you know, the promise of your story and, like, you know, what the story is about. And that's usually, like, delivered in the first 500 words of your story. I've heard it said that, like, you know, just by the way, is like a random side bit here. For those, this is, like, probably more advanced writing and whatnot, so don't take this to heart when you're trying to do a rough draft, please God. It's really annoying, but I've heard it said that you have about 25 words to hook a reader in terms of interest. And you have about 500 to maybe like 700 or so to deliver a promise as to what your story is going to be about. And basically that'll kind of like show what the tone of the story is. It'll show you know, what the reader's going to get into in the middle of the book, right? So it's like a promise of like, hey, I know things are going to be a little bit rough in this first act, but I promise you that there, you know, while there are dark themes, it's humorous, There is magic. There is friendship. You know, there's a sympathetic character. You know, that type of thing. You kind of just show them what, in a nutshell, your story is going to be about, and then just get on with like, you know, the first act in order to basically show what the original world is like for the main character before they enter the unknown and the crazy. Let's see here. But yeah, before we go, I figured I'd you know, kind of go through the normal chat that we do at the end. So I wanted to start off by thanking you guys for showing up. I really appreciate the love and support. Thank you, Sagittarius, for you know, leaving a follow. That's wonderful stuff. I really appreciate that. It's always good to have like new friends to hang out with and enjoy the journey together. We had a lot of good discussion today, and I'm very grateful for when you guys like, you know, post questions and whatnot, because it gives us something to talk about, and it makes the process feel a lot less lonely. We're able to kind of like work together and come up with an I guess interesting discovery through the process of writing, and perhaps learn more about the craft, you know. So yeah, aside from that, guys, yeah, I just wanted to thank you. We usually host this stream on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. So if you want to catch that again, those are the days that we will be doing that. You can also leave a follow. It's a great way to get notified when we're live. And you can also check out our Discord by hitting !Discord. And the benefits of doing that, it allows you access to the journal entries that we write here. It allows you access to the channel where you can post questions ahead of time. And some of those questions can be addressed on stream. And let's see here. You can also like talk to other creatives and also get a hold of me if you would like to chat. So there's a lot of cool stuff that you can do on the Discord channel. I'm trying to think of like what else. I guess for those of you who don't know, again, my name is NovelistCrim, and this was Writing Company and Motivation, an accountability stream. So we're gonna be ending things tonight, guys. It's almost 10 o'clock, and I think we had a lot of good energy and a lot of good times. So I appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much. Take it easy, and as always, stay passionate.